When you see it, it's hard to not unsee it. I went down the Greg Cardone rabbit hole. Something told me to dig a little deeper into this man, and it didn't take me long. Like, it literally took me 5 minutes, and I was able to put the pieces together as to why I found him very questionable. I also discovered that a lot of other people noticed the same thing that I noticed. The reason why no one's listening is because no one has actually broken down the issues or the conflicting components of what he talks about or what he does with other people's money. But I'm getting ready to break it down. Buckle up. Now, why do I have Madoff and DJ Envy on the same page? Because from the outside looking in, what Greg Cardone does is very similar to what they both were doing and what they both got indicted for. DJ Envy was encouraging people to invest their money into real estate properties with a fixed return. He could do one project to cover the other project, right? And keep the money coming in, the return coming in. Same thing with Madoff, the exact same thing. Things didn't start to get dicey for him until he was not able to make the returns, the fixed returns as promised, right? Was not able to produce the money. Greg Cardone has been able to continue to produce the money. Well, I had to dig a little deeper as to how is he able to continue to produce the money. If I understand this correctly, he owns his own underwriting company. He guarantees a fixed return of 6%. The fact that the underwriting company inflates the price of the property, the value of the property based on, quote, future value. Well, how far out in the future are you quoting this value? What that tells me is that not only is he finding property, getting the public to invest in his property with a promised fixed return of 6%, he then goes and he underwrites the property for an inflated amount of money based off of, quote, future value, but he never shares what the perceived future value is. How many years are you inflating the value of this property? The bank gives him that money, and then he has all this extra money to do what with? What are you doing with that extra money? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's basically what's happening. And the only reason that Greg Cardone is not in the same boat as Madoff and DJ Envy is because he has successfully been able to maintain the fixed payments every month for everyone who's invested up to this point. And it's probably because he's been inflating the value of the properties and getting the banks to sign off on it. Ugh. This is not going to end well. We are getting ready to watch a video of Greg Cardone speaking to the press. You're going to hear him lay out, quote, his process in real estate. You're going to hear how he covers his backside in his interview. I'll point them out and you come to your own conclusion. I already have mine. At the end, you will also see how he projects and gets ahead of anything that someone might come to the conclusion of after he shares his process. Watch closely. I'm going to tap my ear when you really need to listen.
That has you worried as a real estate investor going forward, the peril you could wind up in.
Yeah, so on every loan application or every transaction, I'm going to go to a bank and say, hey, if I want to put a loan on this, what are the loan proceeds going to be? Those loan proceeds are based on the value of the property. They're going to require me to actually underwrite my property on the cash
He's
flow,
underwriting his own properties that he's purchasing.
Valuation I believe that property's worth. The broker will also put a valuation on it.
Now he's covering his butt, adding that he has checks and balances.
For me, internally, for my investors. And then the bank is also, Steve, going to use at least one other appraisal, maybe two, independent of me. They're going to go out and hire those people and pay those people. They'll charge me back for it later. Sure. So there could be as many as 5 appraisals on that. The value that I'm going to put on the property, keep in mind, when I'm buying something,
he's inflating the value.
Selling it the next day. In the case of Trump, he's not selling any of this stuff. Right. In the case of Cardone Capital, we are long-term holders, 10, 15, and 20 years. We want the property for the cash flow. So I'm going to put a value on it in the future.
How far in the future?
Look, I remember doing a deal once where I put a value on my property that I was getting rid of. I inflated the value. A guy at the bank at Merrill Lynch.
Now he's trying to validate what he does.
For the price I had stated to the bank. So every seller is always going to push the price value up based on the future, not based on fraud.
It makes sense as to why he pulled out of New York, because in New York, they're cracking down on people who are doing the exact same thing that Grant Cardone is doing. I find it very fascinating. I think it's just a matter of time. People have been yelling this out and talking about it and calling him out. When I was doing my research, I noticed that people were calling him out and like literally saying like, hey, something's off. It appears that what he is doing and how he's making his money is not on the up and up. And people are not listening. I think this is going to be a very interesting situation for Greg Cardone. And I feel like the only reason he's been able to get away with this so long is because he's a confident person. He's a white male. People don't tend to question white men very much until their money is not coming back as quickly as it once was. As long as Greg Cardone continues to produce those returns, ain't nobody gonna say anything. Ain't nobody gonna do anything. But what he is doing from the outside looking in through observation is no different than Madoff and DJ Envy.